All right, welcome Algebra 2 class. Let's do this, lesson 29. Let's start up with a warm-up, okay? So here it says solve the equation. We have 6 equals x plus the square root of x. So how would you try and solve this problem to solve the value of x, okay? Strategy is always, we want to get the radical by itself, right? So what would you do to get this square root of x by itself? Pause the video and try and solve it on your own, yeah? Okay. So the first move is we want to do a minus x on both sides. So now here, the idea is that this, let me zoom in a little bit. Okie dokie, that looks good. So the idea is here, this cancels out, right? And then when we look over here, can you do 6 minus x? You can't combine these two, so we just leave it as it is, okay? And then we have the square root of x, right? And what was the purpose? Why do we want the square root by itself? So we can square both sides, okay? Because now here, because the square root is by itself, we could square both sides. So here, what would you do next? What we're going to do is we're going to take both sides and we're going to square it, okay? And then what happens here, these two cancel out, right? And now we just have what's left is the x. And now we have 6 minus x, the whole thing squared. So what we have to do is we have to do 2 of these, okay? Right. And then how do we continue forward? We're going to FOIL, okay? And how do you FOIL? Remember the idea is 6 times 6. This is 36, right? What's the next move? 6 times minus x, which is minus 6x, right? Next move, negative x times 6, which is negative 6x. And then here we have negative x times negative x, and that's positive x squared, and that equals x, okay? Now here the idea is, let's put it in standard form. So here we have x squared, and then we can combine these two, so that's negative 12x, and then we have this positive 36 over here, and it equals x, okay? And then how do you continue forward? Well, let's see. What do we do from this point? Like, pause the video. How do you continue forward? What would your next move be? Okay? So, we would say is we want 0. Okay? We want to get 0 on this side. So how would we do that? We could do minus x, and now we have x squared. Negative 12 minus this positive 1 here is negative 13x, positive 36, and that equals 0. And we've said it throughout the week. Why do you want 0? Because over here, we want to be able to factor, okay? And now let's try and, for space, let's just put this over here. So if I have, let's continue here. If I have x squared minus 13x plus 36 equals 0, how does this factor? What two numbers when you multiply give you positive 36, but when you add give you negative 13? Try and find the two numbers, right? And pause the video and try and figure it out for yourself. Okay. Here it should be x minus 9 and x minus 4, because negative 9 times negative 4 is positive 36. Negative 9 plus negative 4 is negative 13. And then once you get to this point, what do you say? You say x minus 9 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. And now here, x equals 9, x equals 4. Okay? And now if you do this, this is not enough, because what must you do? You must check your answer. We have to check. Okay? So let's check x equals 9. How does it work out? Well, what's the original equation? It is 6 equals x plus square root x, right? This is the original equation that we started with over here, right? 6 is equal to x plus square root x, okay? So anywhere we see the x, we're just going to substitute the 9. So now this becomes 6 equals 9 plus square root 9. And let's see, 6 is equal to 9 plus, what is the square root of 9? That's 3. And now here you have 6 equals 12. So this is false. So what are we going to say? That x equals 9 is an extraneous solution. Okay. What about over here? X equals 4, right? What I want you to do is pause the video and try it for yourself. Plug in 4 into this equation, right? So 6 equals x plus square root x. 6 equals 4 plus the square root of 4. 6 equals 4 plus, this is 2. 6 is equal to 6. And then here, x equals 4 is a solution. Okay? So notice that the x equals 4 works, but this x equals 9 is an extraneous solution. It doesn't work. All right? What I want you to do is, let's move on. Here, let's skip this problem for now. Let's not do this one because it gets a little tricky. This one is not too bad. So what I'd like you to do is, using what we've learned before in the previous question over here, right? Try and do question number 2 on your own, okay? And we'll see what happens, right? Okay. So there's something a little tricky we need to figure out with this. So what's the first move? What do we want to do? We want to get the radical by itself, right? So here, how do you get the radical by itself? We do plus x, okay? Now here, you have 3 plus x, right? Is equal to 4 radical x. Now, the square root is kind of by itself. It has this 4. So you're still allowed to do this. So what happens if we square both sides? So let's say if I square this and I square this, okay? Now let's see, what will this equal if I have on the side, if I have 4 radical x, the whole thing squared, right? What will this equal? The same way, like if I have 3 squared, what am I gonna do? I do 3 times 3. Like whatever's on the inside, I do 2 of it. Okay, well whatever's on the inside of this, I'm gonna do 2 of it. So it's 4 radical x times 4 radical x, okay? And then what happens here very simply is, you just say 4 times the 4 is 16. And then look over here. You see how you have radical x times radical x? What does that equal to over here? Notice that this equals to radical x, the whole thing squared, because you have 2 of them. And notice what happens here if you square the square root, this cancels. So you just have x, okay? So if I have square root of x times square root of x, it's just x. And that's this over here. For example, if I had, let's say, 2x, radical 2x times radical 2x, this just becomes radical 2x, the whole thing squared, and it just cancels and you're just left with the 2x on the inside, okay? So this on the right side over here is 16x, okay? Then how do you continue forward? This shouldn't be too bad. Like we could all do this. Like what did we do before when we got into this position in the previous problem? We had to do, what did we do over here? We did 2 of them, right? And then we FOILed. And that's what I'd like you to do here. So try and pause the video and try and continue the problem on your own. Okay? So over here, this becomes what? 3 plus x times 3 plus x. And now we just have to FOIL this. 3 times 3, 9. 3 times x, 3x. X times 3, 3x. Right? X times x, x squared equals 16x. Right? And now let's put it in standard form. So this usually goes first. These 2 we can combine. And this 9 is over here, equals 16x, right? And by now, once we have some quadratic equation, how do you continue forward? We should be okay by now, right? What's the next move? We do minus 16x, right? And now we have x squared. Now what is 6 minus 16? That is negative 10x plus 9 equals 0. So let's put this over here. X squared minus 10x plus 9 equals 0. Oh, my bad. We have this. Now we have to factor, right? What two numbers when you multiply give you positive 9, but when you add give you negative 10? Pause the video and try and do it by yourself, right? Don't wait for me. So it's x minus 9, x minus 1 equals 0. And then once we get to this point, we could say x minus 9 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. So x equals 9, x equals 1. Okay? But if you do this, I mean, once we get to this point, what do you have to do? Right? You should know this by now. What do we have to do next? We have to check it. Okay? So check x equals 9 if it works. Right? What is the original equation? It's 3 equals 4 radical x minus x. Okay? So let's substitute. Anywhere we see x, we put in 9. So this is 3 equals 4 times the square root of 9 minus 9. This is equal to 3 equals 4. Now here, how do you simplify this? This is 4. And what is the 4 doing to the radical x? It's multiplying. So now here, this becomes 4 times 3 minus 9. So this is 3 is equal to 12 minus 9. And is 12 minus 9 equal to 3? And that's true. We have 3 equals 3. Okay, so this works. X equals 9 is a solution. Okay, what about the other one? Let's see. If I have x equals 1, and is 3 equal to, okay, so 3 equals 4 radical x minus x, right? So let's plug in 1 and see what happens. So here, 3 is equal to 4 radical 1 minus 1. 3 is equal to, okay, well, what is the square root of 1? It's 1. And what happens with the 4 and this 1? It multiplies minus 1. Here, 3 equals 4 minus 1. 3 equals 3. So x equals 1 is also a solution, is a solution. Okie dokie. So, happy face. Not too bad, right? What I'd like you to do is try and do, let's turn to page number 2. Try and do question 3 by yourself, and question 4, the idea for question 4 is like this one, let's just start it off. Like, how would you start this question? Let's take a look at it, right? Pause the video and try and, what is the first move for this question, right? The radical is by itself, so you just square both sides, okay? And you can continue forward. For this one, what is the first move? It's a little tricky, but the idea is you want to subtract 2 radical x minus 8 on both sides. Okay? Because now, you see, you're allowed to do this. Because this cancels, and what you left on the left side, you're left with 3x plus 7, like the square root of this. This cancels, and you see on the right side, you're left with negative 2 radical x minus 8. And now here, the idea is you square both sides. And then you see, then you continue forward. Okay? Good luck. I believe in you.